Hey there, welcome to Lsat Demon Daily Digest. This is our recap of all the Lsat Demon Daily episodes from the week. I'm Ben Olson, that's Nathan Fox. Together we're the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking Lsat.
Today we have an email from Nathaniel.
Says, hello, my name is Nathaniel and I'm a big fan of the show and the demon. As a first-gen student without many connections to folks in law school admissions, the information you provide is invaluable. I would love to hear your thoughts on two questions. Is there a point where UGPAs above 4.0 stop making a difference? My LSAC GPA is 4.28.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. But I want to sign up for a class next semester, my last semester of undergrad, that does not offer A+. Do you see the 4.27 I would end with as significantly different from my 4.28? Also, I took an official LSAT for the first time last August and received a 177. Big thanks to the demon. I love LSAT and the LSAT and continue to play logic games and do sections for fun, so I am still well practiced. Should I get greedy and consider taking the test a second time to improve my score? You answered a fellow listener about retaking a 175, so I wanted to know if there is a certain point where you do not recommend people retake their LSAT. So two questions, I guess, Ruth. Should he worry about taking a class that doesn't offer A+? He's like, I'm only going to get an A in that class. So it might lower my GPA to a 4.27 from a 4.28. And then the other question is, should he retake his 177 to try to get a 178, 179, or 180? What do you think?
Well, that GPA of 4.28, I've almost never seen anything like that before. It seems like, I'm guessing if a A+ is a 4.3, then Nathaniel has almost straight A+ on his transcript, which is
it has to be. It has to be. We could do the math, but I mean, he's saying that a single A would lower him from a 4.28 to a 4.27. Yeah. So it looks to me like he's gotten maybe 2 A's in his entire career. He's gotten 2 A's and then everything else A+. When I went to college, I don't think we even had A+ at all. And
neither did we. I think it's school by school.
Okay, but I didn't know that LSAC, this seems like the type, what is the point of an LSAC GPA if they don't translate A+ down to just straight A's for people? I don't get it.
That's a great question. Well, it seems like Nathaniel, though, has been quite strategic here, right? He's saying, I don't know if it's a good idea to take a class that doesn't offer A+, so he's mostly only, maybe intentionally, taken these A+ option classes in the past.
I would say it's stronger than that. I think we can infer that he has clearly only taken classes, maybe a couple, but he has clearly taken only classes that only offer A+.
Yes.
I mean, and that's maybe that's just what they do at his undergrad. But I just like people never talk about LSAC GPAs that are above 4.0s. That's just not a thing. We've been doing the Thinking LSAT podcast for 8 years. We get emails every day. I've never even heard of people talking about this. This is like a brand new thing, I guess, that schools are offering A+. And I really, Ruth, you're with me. I really don't understand what the point is of LSAC doing their magic when they equate GPAs from different schools.
If some people are able to get A+ and some people aren't. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. I mean, I really don't understand that, but shit. Okay. It's in Nathaniel's favor, apparently.
Great. Well, to answer the question then, do I think it would be bad to drop to a low GPA of 4.27? I don't really feasibly see how that could hurt Nathaniel, because what schools tend to care about when it comes to their UGPAs, right, is the medians and maybe the 25th and the 75th. That's what affects their public profile. Yeah. And Nathaniel will be so far above the 75th of any school that I'm not sure that this is really a big concern in his case. What do you think?
Well, I just called up the 509 report from your future alma mater, Yale University Law School, on their 2021 Standard 509 Information Report. Their 75th percentile UGPA is 3.99.
Well, there you
So,
go.
yeah, I mean, 25% of the class at Yale has, I guess, a 3.99 or higher. So that could be 4.0, could be 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. It could be 5.0 for all I know. I mean, who knows what's happening out there these days? Maybe you can get an A plus 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 or something and get even higher than that. I don't know, but like it's certainly not going to affect the 509 report, right? Whether he gets in with a 4.27 or a 4.28 is not going to change this report. When you're already solidly in the 75th percentile or above, they're going to have no doubt that you can compete. You're not going to lower their public profile. The GPA thing, I would absolutely not worry about in the slightest. I mean, they're going to be like, holy shit, 4.27?
Totally.
Even they might be like, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. That's incredible. So, I wouldn't worry about that. The LSAT thing, though, I feel like that's maybe I don't know. What do you think? Should he retake it?
I suppose that there's not going to be massive downsides to it. If you take it and you get another 177 or a 175, I don't think that will really make your profile weaker. But I do think that maybe this is just me because I scored a 177. But I think past that point, we are getting a little bit into the area of diminishing returns. I'm not really sure that even the topmost school, especially with such a strong GPA, will, if you have a 180, say, see you as a completely different league of candidate.
Yeah. I'm looking at the 75th percentiles. I'm looking at, so 75th percentile, though, for Yale is 177.
So
exactly 177 is the number. So it you said earlier, before we recorded, you said you think that what schools are really looking at is their median and maybe their 75th percentile.
Maybe. I mean, I'm no expert.
Well,
yeah.
It is public record, right? Like everybody else in the world gets to see it. So we get to talk about it. So it's, I could see why it stands to reason that they would look at that sometimes. And if their 75th percentile is 177, maybe they would like that to be a 178. And if he retook it and got a 178, 179, or 180, he potentially would be the guy who makes them have a 75th percentile of 178, 179, or 180. That's the way percentiles work, right? It's just like you're lining up all the people in a row, and Yale's not that big of a class, right? What do we got? We got 214 offers of admission, 150 people actually enrolled. That's kind of interesting to think about, those 64 people who told Yale no. 150 people in the new class. And, if you line them all up in a row, Nathaniel might be the 75th percentile person. And then if he's a 177, their 75th percentile is 177. And if he's a 178, then their 75th percentile is a 178. And so it is possible that something like that would actually be reflected on this report. The GPA thing would never be reflected on this report. So possibly that matters. You agree that if he takes it again and scores lower, they're not going to care?
I don't see why. I think there sometimes are rumors out there, and this is, I think, something I heard one admissions officer maybe say on a podcast, is that past a certain point, they may begin to question judgment or something like that. That is something that at least one admission officer has said once. Now, I don't know if you always want to be taking them at their word versus looking at what their incentives are.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's, in my view, I wonder if there might be better things at this point that Nathaniel could be doing with his time. He has a fabulous GPA, one of the best LSAT scores. Maybe there's something else he would want to be doing at this point. I think it would be okay to focus on other parts of his application as well.
I totally agree. Well, if he did this, he would be doing it essentially for fun. I mean, he has said, again, he said, I continue to the verb choice there is what really kind of like caught my eye. He said, "I continue to play logic games." Did you catch that? I
Yeah,
continue to
he sees
play
them as an
logic
actual
games.
game, not
Well,
not a
because they
chore.
are. They're kind of
Yeah.
like they're fun. You should eventually get to the point where you have fun with the games. And if you're actually sitting there doing sections for fun, what, like, think about what the cost really is. He's going to have to pay $200 to register for the test, and he's going to take a couple hours on some random afternoon and take the test again, which he's already done successfully. He knows he can kill it, and he's just going to kill it again and try to kill it even harder than he already killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to just try to put yet another feather in his cap. And it's like, I don't know. If there's no downside, I think there's very little upside.
Yeah. And I think the downside would be primarily wasting your time, or
$200.
yeah, $200. So what's that $200 worth to you?
Yeah. Like, if you want to do it just for fun, just so that you can have that higher number on your personal record, yeah, you're doing it for yourself. You're not really doing it for anybody else. You're doing it for yourself. But if you want to do it, you have my blessing. I don't see any reason not to do it, but I don't see any big reason why you should, like, especially if you're going to be like, well, I'm really going to have to study hard for this now and like gear up and not do other things, like, because that's the real thing, right? It's the opportunity cost of like, well, what other stuff could you be doing?
Yeah, maybe like volunteer in your community or something, like
literally anything. Like, is there some show you've been wanting to catch up on Netflix?
Yeah,
like, it could be worth your time than this. That said, if you're doing it for fun and it's something you want to do, I don't really see any reason not to. I really want people to email. Can you email daily@lsatdemon.com if you can provide some intelligence regarding these LSAC GPAs that are above 4.0? This makes no sense to me. I just don't get it.
I think some people are already aware of and mad about it. I think if I remember from my days on like admissions boards, you'll occasionally get a cranky person on there being like, it's so unfair, my school doesn't offer A+, and all these other people have this thing buoying their GPA that I don't. I don't know. I think LSAC, as much as they like to talk about equity, has made a bit of an oversight here about the fact that not everyone is getting the same opportunities. But I don't know what their rationale is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, if there is going to be such a thing as an LSAC GPA,
mm-hmm.
right? Because they don't have to. I don't know that they have to have an LSAC GPA. I don't know if that requirement came from the American Bar Association or something like that. Doesn't seem like it would really be a necessity to have an LSAC GPA. If there's not an LSAC GPA, then it's just completely Wild West, and schools can report whatever they want to report, and there's no kind of equating going on at all. But if you are going to do any kind of an equation where you're like, oh no, that's the LSAC GPA, and we do that, you see, so that you can compare one applicant to another applicant to another applicant. But some schools have 4.3s and some schools don't. Like, if your school, Ruth, if you had gotten literally the best grade you could get in every single class, you would have graduated with a 4.0.
Correct.
Okay. Well, then how is that possibly fair? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't know. Maybe it's just not a high priority item, since most people don't really have those top of the line GPAs anyway. So not enough people are complaining about it. I don't know. I
guess. But the thing is, people do have those GPAs
yeah.
at the places where it really matters. Like, this is like millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars that are changing hands every single year based on, a few LSAT points and a few points of GPA. And, it's admission to Yale or not admission to Yale. And I don't know, maybe the good folks at Yale already understand this, and they look at that 4.28 and they go, or 4.27, and they go, yeah, to us, that's a 3.98 or a 3.97. Could be as simple as that, where they're just like, yeah, your school offers A+. Other schools don't. Who knows?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This is not an issue I ran into. I was a good student, but not that good of a student.
No, you were. You didn't have the opportunity to get a 4.28. It was literally impossible. Anyway, I hope
gosh.
that was helpful, Nathaniel. If anybody out there wants to vent about GPAs above 4.0, yeah, email daily@lsatdemon.com. We have a submission here that came in via thinkinglsat.com, our brand new hot shit looking website. This is from Ahmad. You want to read it?
Yeah, sure. Dear Ben and Nathan, in episode 345 of the Thinking LSAT podcast, you speculate about the possible reasons why someone who does not intend to apply to law school might take the LSAT. I don't remember that. I'm writing to share an additional reason I just learned over coffee with a friend. Some big consulting firms apparently treat the LSAT as an aptitude test and recruit high LSAT scores. My friend, for example, is taking the LSAT in June for no other reason than to get an advantage over peers in the recruiting cycle next year. It looks like McKinsey thinks you two are very smart cookies. Interesting. Okay. McKinsey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a smart call. I would say it's a good test to test certain skills. And
it does not test every skill, but it tests a nice portfolio of skills that are really useful in a lot of different ways.
Problem solving. Yep. Language.
Part of the reason why our team is so awesome is that we kind of like know everybody's LSAT score. And, and so, you know, it's not like we ourselves only use LSAT when we're hiring, but it means something to us that you can achieve a high score on the LSAT. What are the things, Ben? Yeah, like as a employer, as a job creator, Ben.
Yeah.
What do you? So I'm just making fun of ourselves, but you know, what are those attributes that as a non-law school, what are the attributes that a high LSAT seem to convey?
So 2 things come to my mind right away. One is attention to detail. So we send out emails all the time. People get emails all the time. And it's like, do this, do that, or here's the problem, or here's what a student said, or here's something that the developer said, or whatever. And it's like people who have this attention to detail read and respond to the actual issue. Right? When we're dealing with people and they're responding to an issue that's not actually there, but they thought was there, we're all wasting our time. So that's one thing, attention to detail. Another thing is, I think, just problem solving and coming up with solutions that are, you know, seem creative or useful or helpful for the situation.
I always say 3 things, and I think that these things do apply directly to the people that we hire. It tests your, Ben was already talking about this, but your communication ability in written English.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the vast majority of communication that lawyers do is in writing.
Yep.
That's what lawyers want to do. They want to get it in writing. They want to put it in writing. They want to see it in writing. Like, let's stop talking about it. I want to see it in writing. And despite what you see on TV, right? It's like,
so you need it in writing. So then 2 weeks from now, when or 4 years from now, when someone's arguing about something, you say, well, look right here. This is what we said.
You can go do some showy argument in court, but in like, you know, the reason why you won that Supreme Court case was because of the documents, not because of whatever you said in the oral argument. Yeah. Anyway, so it tests your ability to understand written English. 2, it tests your logic. Ben talked about problem solving and, you know, the ability to solve systems, the ability to think about things holistically and to be able to come up with creative solutions. My approach to logical reasoning is very creative. My approach to the logic games, very creative. Like, how can we solve these puzzles? In LR, what kinds of arguments might this be susceptible to? How could this be better? How could this be worse? What kind of facts outside these facts on the paper might affect these facts that are on the page? And so your ability to sort of broaden the scope is, you know, understand everything in detail that's there, but then also broaden the scope and synthesize. I think it's a very good test for testing those abilities. So English, logic, and then the third thing is how hard you can work.
Sure.
Because it fucking means something that somebody shows up with a 175. It could be that it's just natural talent. It could be. But even I didn't score a 175 on the first LSAT I ever took. Like, I sucked at the games. I had to show enough work ethic to get good at the games. Even me. And I'm like not a hard worker. Right. So it's like
but you can work on something, and that's critical, right? Like, even if you can't work on a whole bunch of shit, you have to be able to do your job and do the steps that are necessary for that.
Yeah. There's no way I was not scoring in the 99th percentile on the LSAT if I did not improve my games. Like, I have a lot of natural talent for reading and writing. Like, my verbal skills are, high. But that only carried me so far. And it's like, okay, great. So you ace reading comp and you pretty much ace logical reasoning without trying. Okay, fine. But the games, like, I had to try.
Mm-hmm.
I had to buckle down. I had to sit down and do an hour or two every single day for however long it was. And then eventually it clicked for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I definitely, this is the first time I ever heard of McKinsey or the other consulting firms doing this, but it does to me make a hell of a lot of sense. More sense than using the GMAT, honestly, because the GMAT, which is used for business school admissions.
Yeah.
But the GMAT is like half of it is math. And so it's just sort of like, well, how much math did you take in high school and college? And can you like brush up and review that math? It's just not as hard as, I don't know. I feel like the LSAT tests more useful skills, really.
It's less about what you have remembered and more about what you can do to process the information you've been given.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, memorization is a form of work too. So like the fact that you do remember the quadratic equation, like that you forced yourself to memorize this abstract thing and know how to apply it to solve a system, that does mean something for sure. But the LSAT tests a lot of really useful skills. Not that the vast majority of our listeners are going to use it to go to law school, but I do believe in it. As a test, it tells me a lot. That one number can tell me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't tell me everything, but it can tell me a lot.
Well, look, it's been studied, and it has along with UGPA. Well, without UGPA, it has a 60% correlation. I'm not sure I'm fully saying that correctly, but it has a 60% correlation with your first year grades in law school, which is no joke. Law school itself is a challenge. It's work.
60%? Where'd you get that number? I thought I remember something lower than that.
It might have been, no, I'm pretty sure, because I think in combination with UGPA, it's 66%, but it accounted for the vast majority of that correlation. Maybe it's 55%, but it's a huge number.
But
it goes higher with UGPA, but not as much as I anticipated.
It makes perfect sense. I think like applicants are like, well, no, but I'm going to kill it in law school. Standardized tests are hard for me. Yeah. Okay. But you've never taken this standardized test before. And this standardized test is different. It's not a memorization test at all. It's a skills-based test that you have to learn how to practice, how to do this. Yeah. And it's testing your ability to read carefully in English, your logical abilities to sort of see how rules interact with each other. And it's testing how hard you can work at this damn thing, especially on the games. Just like, how much do you want it? And those three things in your 1L year of law school are like 100% critical. That's everything. That's the entire game.
Yeah. Just even the process of law school.
Yeah. And law school's harder, by the way, than the LSAT is.
I mean,
like talking
these
to Sarah,
court cases are longer, and they're written in English that was
they're written way worse
in the 1800s.
Yeah, you think that the reading comprehension on the LSAT is hard? It's nothing. It's nothing. Have you ever seen a law book?
Yeah.
I mean, like the shit you're going to do in your 1L year is it. Sarah thought that she was being hazed.
Academic hazing.
She said she thought she was in a blender, and like that's somebody who scored whatever 99, 170, whatever that Sarah scored, and had awesome undergraduate grades and was in Harvard.
Yeah,
and she's like, "Oh, I never had any idea how hard shit could be until I got there." So master the LSAT. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ahmad, for that submission.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Interesting. Here we have a question that came through the Demons Ask button to the support team, which I think they already responded to maybe, but we could jump in and offer some advice as well.
Says, good morning. I was wondering if someone could give me some guidance on which package to purchase and how to use the platform lessons based on where I am in my LSAT journey. I took the LSAT in 2020 and scored a 162 and would like to retake. I haven't studied at all in the last 2 years and took a diagnostic test using your platform this morning, but doesn't report a score from that diagnostic. I wanted to know where I should start using your resources. I have a default answer to this, which really doesn't ever change.
Okay, go for it.
I think that time is your most valuable resource. I know that 1 month of our live program will blow your mind as far as better ways of thinking about the test, tips on how to study, how to schedule your time, what to focus on, what not to focus on, and just some foundational, fundamental ways of thinking about the test.
Yeah.
That you can get in 1 month. And I've just seen so many people struggle with other platforms or struggle to get started and make no progress. And then after 1 month, I mean, it's actually like in the first week of using live, they're like, oh my God, I'm up 8 points already. And I totally understand. And it's like, yeah, you know, you can get lots of great help at the lower levels of subscription.
Yeah.
But if you're only going to do 1 month of live, it should be your first month. Because I think that when you then downgrade to, which you can do at any time.
Yep.
I mean, you don't even have to wait till the end of the month. You can email help at LSAT Demon and you can go up and down in the subscription levels whenever.
Yeah.
And I just believe that you're going to make the most out of your study time after we've gotten our claws into you for a month. And so I think you can get you can just get that instant, like, now you're a better LSAT student because you did that 1 month of live. And then from there, you know, many people decide to stay live. Other people go down to premium or basic and self-study for as long as they want. But your self-study is going to just be so much more efficient. You know, even if it was only 10% more efficient, I would give the same advice. But I think in many cases, it's like 100% or 500% more efficient. Because
absolutely. You're doing what you should be doing. Yeah, you're doing what you should be doing. We were talking about this on an earlier episode, but pick up a phone and call, right? Talk to someone. You're sitting there talking to some teacher in class, and it's like, oh, you're going to put things together that you may spend much longer just trying to search for in the, written sphere. It's like, talk to somebody. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, I will acknowledge that this is in my financial best interest to give you this advice. You know, like, I'm advising our most expensive option. You know what, though? I'm also not advising tutoring, which is
that's
tutoring
true, which is more expensive.
In my financial best interest. And I would recommend not to do that. No. Unless you have like unlimited money. But I always find myself talking people out of tutoring. I think that you should do a month of live. I think you should come to class. I think you should come to Ben's class, come to my classes, go to Matt's awesome logic games classes, go to Becca's amazing reading comp and logical reasoning classes. Go, meet our teachers and let those teachers guide you to your best study plan. And just get some like instant better understanding of the test. I think you'll find it motivating. I think you'll then be better equipped to, just stop feeling like you're banging your head against the wall. And I think you'll be the most successful if you meet us and like engage with us that way sooner rather than later. So I would always recommend people just try 1 month of live and see how it goes for you. This one comes to us, Ben, from a recently departed and will be sorely missed Demon Live student. She killed the Lsat.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So is no longer with us. But she specifically emailed this. She wanted you to talk about it.
Okay. Regarding the demon dashboard. Okay. And on the demon dashboard, by the way, you have a score from 0 to 100 for each of the 3 sections: for logical reasoning, for logic games, and for reading comprehension. And as you do better in each section, the demon gives you a higher and higher score. How the demon determines whether you do better or worse is simply a function of whether you got a question right, how hard it was, and how long it took you to answer it. So this correspondent says, I'm currently at 93 out of 100 in logical reasoning, 64 out of 100 in logic games, and 73 out of 100 in reading comp. However, I have spent exponentially more time drilling logic games than reading comp or logical reasoning. With little study time remaining until my April test, how do you, Ben, recommend that I proceed? I know Nathan keeps his eyes on the road ahead and not on the dashboard. That's funny. I have been getting untimed perfect game sections lately, but only on level 3 or lower difficulty under timed conditions.
She didn't say sections. She said perfect.
Oh, did
games.
I said section? Oh, okay. Untimed perfect game scores.
She can work through a game untimed and get it perfect, but only on level 3 or lower.
Okay. In logical reasoning, I only drill level 5 questions and get about 80% of those correct. Maybe reading comp is where I should drill and stick to timed sections for logic games and logical reasoning.
You know what? I'm wrong. She can do a section perfect. She can do all the games perfectly untimed. She says when she does it under timed conditions, then she only gets level 3 or lower difficulty perfect.
Okay. So what's missing here is how you're doing on timed sections. Look, the demon is going to give you an estimate of where it thinks you are in each of these sections. And it looks like you're struggling more with games. And it almost sounds like you maybe are. I mean, you're doing a perfect section, but it's untimed. How do we know how you actually do on a timed section?
This is why I dislike the dashboard. I mean, it's there because it provides people with some measure of how they're doing. It's an easy numeric thing. Some people find it motivating. You know, we've got it, but it's like, I feel like it just takes people's eye off the ball, where it's like, okay, what are you scoring in a timed LSAT? What are you scoring on the 3 different sections? Where are you losing your points on a timed section? That's the indicator of where you should turn your attention, because she's now looking at this and going, okay, so, well, maybe RC is where I should drill. What does she say? She wants to drill RC and then stick to timed sections for LG and LR.
Okay. This could be taking her eye off the ball, and it sounds like it is in this case, and that's unfortunate, but that's assuming that this data or this indicator is wrong. Like if her timed sections are lower in games, she's talking about an untimed game section. What do we do with that? Like I don't even know what to do with that.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure why she's even doing untimed sections of games. We didn't tell her to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not even an option.
That's the whole point, is to drill. When you're drilling, you're untimed. So drill games untimed. That's your untimed practice. The demon will take note of how long it takes you to solve those games. That's how it knows what difficulty to give you.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't see the point of doing untimed game sections. I mean, she's clearly not good enough at the easy games, right? She needs to get better at the easy games. So drilling games is the way she's going to get better at the easy games.
Yeah.
And she should do timed sections every once in a while just to get a sense of where she is. But if, let's say she's only getting, 16 points on the games out of 23.
Yep.
If she's only getting 16 points on the games, it's not because she's not good at the hard games. It's because she's not good at the easy games.
Yeah.
Because she's not even getting to the hard games, or she shouldn't be. she's just taking too long on the easy games, and the drilling tool should be giving her the easy games.
Which is what it's doing, actually, because it
Yeah.
decides what games to give you based on this number right here. And it's saying, okay, well, you're not fast enough yet, so I'm going to give you some more of this until you can figure out how to do it correctly. She's probably not spending enough time setting up her games.
Well, yeah, everybody who's not good at the games, it's because they don't set the games up well enough.
And I would specifically say they're probably not spending enough time on that, right? They feel like they are, but they're not. And it's like, it's okay. Take longer because you'll actually go fast.
It's almost always like stopping one step short, right? I have students now share their diagrams with me in class, and then I share them back out to the class. And that it's been a fun way of like reviewing logic games in my classes recently. And it's like, there's one guy in particular that I'm thinking of every time. It feels like he sets it up right, and then he's just at the point where he's about to make the key inference, and then he just chooses not to make the split. He writes down the rule instead of like splitting based on that rule. And then he just doesn't unlock the game. And, you know, frequently he answers all the questions right, and he feels pretty good about himself because he got them all right in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was me like 5 years ago.
And it's like, yeah, but
I wrote down the rules, I split them up, and then it's like, oh, okay, right here. That's good enough. I don't want to just go crazy with this world thing. And so it works, but it's not as fast, because when you do unlock that last key, man, everything is like answered. I was talking about this last night in class.
Exactly. Yeah.
What can they ask? They can't ask me anything now because I've solved the whole system. It's right here on the whiteboard or on my paper. I don't care what they ask. They can ask me 10 questions. Yeah.
You've solved the system. You know how the system works. And at that point, you could write the fucking test. Right? You could write the questions. I mean, it's like, you know, you're really good at the games when you read a question and you go, oh, they could have made that question a hell of a lot harder. Like they could have asked this and this and this other thing. And instead they just asked for that. Oh man. Okay. Easy question. So anyway, this student, let's give some advice and wrap it up.
I would actually like to hear students tell me my practice sections, my practice tests, those scores are inconsistent with the dashboard. If it is, then there's a problem and I'd like to tweak it. But my guess is that they're not far off, because this is just taking the data from people who are taking time sections and drilling. It's like, I don't know how else we could change it.
She's like specifically talking about how to balance her drilling versus her timed sections in each of the 3 topic areas. And it's like, I don't know, do some drilling and do some timed sections in all of them, but spend more time on the section that you're the worst on. So she has been spending a ton of time on games. That's great. Reading comp is still an area for improvement. Seems like she could spend some time there.
What do you have for us today, Nathan?
Well, this came from, so Dylan is, for people who don't know, Dylan is a super valued member of the Lsat Demon team. He responds to ask button requests on every single question. I guess one way to think about it is that there's 10,000 ask buttons within the Demon, right? Because there's an ask button on every single question, and that ask button goes to Dylan's team. That it's a team of LSAT tutors, everybody who scored 99th percentile on the official LSAT. What did you score, Dylan?
177.
Yep. And so Dylan is there responding to questions about individual LSAT questions. And you've been doing that now for how long?
I'm not sure. Last summer for sure. I don't remember what month exactly, but it's been a while. I've definitely gotten better.
Yeah, 9 months. And you've been doing, like, if this last week is an indication, you've been doing 15 or 20 a day for 9 months. So, there's you've probably done by now thousands of these written responses to students. So you've learned in kind of a unique way, you've learned a lot about LSAT along the way. But this came from one of our students, and we'll keep him anonymous. But it said, hey guys, my question is strategy based. I was wondering if I could get some advice. When I took this practice test, I got to passage 4 with about 5 minutes left. I've been in the same predicament for several practice tests with 5 minutes left. I read the first and last paragraph and try to answer what I can. Would other strategies, such as skimming, be more useful with limited time? And you wrote a response that we thought was super useful. You did a football analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you walk us through that?
Well, the first thing that struck me as odd about this request is that getting to the last passage with 5 minutes left is really good. Like, it's not all the way there, but think of how many students don't even get to the fourth passage, or they get to the fourth passage as like time is running out. So if you have 5 minutes, that is a great place to be when starting the last passage, but it's not quite there. And this is kind of the analogy that I used. It's like improving on RC is moving the ball up the field in football, American football. I don't know how many international listeners there are.
Yeah, NFL.
But yeah, the goal is to go score a touchdown and get 7 points. Just like in RC, the goal is to finish all the passages and get all the questions right. So the point that this listener is, or Demon student is at, he's so close. He gets to the fourth passage with 5 minutes left. He only needs to be a little bit quicker on each of the previous 3 passages to have enough time to really give the fourth passage a good shot. But when he's asking for, like, how do I take a shortcut? Like, just read the first and last paragraph or skim the whole thing.
Yep.
I analogize that to, he got all the way to the 5-yard line. So he's 5 yards away from scoring a touchdown. And now he's asking me what's the best way to kick a field goal or, get 3 points instead of the 7. When he worked all the way up to get a touchdown and all that effort, and he's just trying to settle for less. So that was what I wrote back to him. And I think Brittany and you liked that analogy. So here we are discussing it.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing that they're like, well, but what do I do in those last 5 minutes? Because I always find myself in this spot. And it's like, yeah, okay, but listen, you've already spent 6 out of 7 of your minutes, right? You've spent 30 out of 35 minutes. Or I guess if you're an accommodated student, the ratio changes a little bit, but even there, it's even more extreme. It's like, well, I don't care what you're doing. If you have 53 minutes or if you have 70 minutes on the section, then those last 5 minutes, like, that's time for you to answer one question. And even for people who are doing the test in normal 35-minute sections, you shouldn't be worrying about that. You should be worrying about how to deepen your comprehension of the passages in the first place so that you can more quickly dismiss wrong answer choices, so that you can blaze through the questions. Never think about blazing through the passage, and read the question itself carefully and read the answer that you're going to pick very carefully. But the wrong answers, that's where we're going to pick up speed, because you're going to read 2 words of some of the wrong answers and just know they're wrong. And that's how to go fast. And so when this question comes in from a student who's like, well, what if I just, in the last 5 minutes, what if I just skim or read the first paragraph and the last paragraph and then try to answer some of the questions? It's like, that's just not what we do here. Mm-hmm. Like, we only ever talk about strategies that are related to understanding. So what my response would be, and I like your football analogy, because it's like, listen, we teach you how to score touchdowns. I don't give a shit what you do about the field goals. What I would do, though, I would say, hey, if the 5-minute warning has popped up, you should guess on all the remaining questions. That'll take you 10 seconds. D. Go back to what you were working on. And if it's a brand new 4th passage, I think you have to read the passage carefully and then try to get 1 or 2 of the questions correct. I do not think that any kind of gimmicky skimming. There are so many passages. If you read the first and last paragraph and then tried to answer the main point question, I feel like they write wrong answer choices intentionally designed to try to catch people who are doing that bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like an underlying assumption of this question is that they're not going to improve between now and when they actually take the test. But they control how much time that is. Now, that might mean being flexible on which cycle you're applying and which test you're taking, but you don't have to take the test tomorrow. You don't need to go in at this current level of preparedness. And one thing I think about the LSAT Demon that sets it apart, besides the overall philosophy, is that I feel like this is the gunner's LSAT prep company. Like, we're not the ones that settle for less. That you know where to find that curricula. We're the gunners who are like going to get every point we can. And, you know, obviously they get a bad rep in law school, but for the LSAT, that's the game.
But they also don't. Like, I think people think that gunners get a bad rep in law school. You know what gunners also do? They get A's. Like they get on-campus interviews. They get, now I'm not talking about the guy who thinks he knows everything and raises his hand and then gets B's on his, gets like a C on his final. Like that dude in the first semester, you never see him again in the second semester because he just learns that he's not the shit. He thought he was, he's not. That's not the gunner I'm talking about. The real gunners, they might not even be raising their hand all the time. They're just like, they did all of the preparation. They have already been working on practice exams from the like very first month of class. They're like doing practice final exams for that class. You know, I did the reading for this week. I also started working on practice exams for 3 months from now. And, you know, they're like in study groups and they're talking about these issues and they're reading supplementary materials and they're like really working their asses off. And they're fully prepared. I like this idea. LSAT prep for gunners.
I mean, the only marketing like part of it that doesn't work is the association people have with that word in law school. Because you're absolutely right. Like they get results, but people, they don't see those results. They see the kid that won't shut up in class, which is not who we're talking about. No,
that's not the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the one who's going to eventually get A's on all their exams. You know, that's the one. And yeah, that's right. I don't want you to get a B on the LSAT. That's not what we're about. Like there's other prep out there that might teach you some gimmicky strategy for skimming and getting from a 150 to a 157. But I feel like if I helped you get from a 150 to a 157, all I'd be doing is giving you the rope to hang yourself on. Like you'd end up going to some shitty school. You'd end up paying way too much money to go there. And I want, like, I'm in the business for the long haul. And like, what I want is I want you guys to go become like Supreme Court clerks. You know, like I want you guys to go become law firm partners, judges. I want you to be a fucking senator, because if you do that, then you will remember where your LSAT prep was and you'll send people back. And I'm not here to like help you barely squeak in and create some unsatisfying legal career, right? I don't want you to impoverish yourself, struggle in law school, struggle with the bar exam, struggle to find work, wash out. I would rather you wait and fully prep for the LSAT, hit a home run. Sorry, mixing too many metaphors, but yeah, I mean, that's what I want. Like I want touchdowns. I definitely don't want the field goals.
Something that I thought was a platitude when I was starting out was when people would say, this is the first step of your legal career. And I'd be like, I am a college student. I'm studying for this test. This is not my legal career. But the more I understood the test and the role it plays in admissions, I'm like, well, your legal career is advocating for people and helping them navigate this legal system that we have. law school admissions, you are advocating for yourself. You are your own client, and you are navigating the system of law school admissions. And I'm not a lawyer, but I've talked to a lot of them, obviously. And I feel like you would agree that like the qualities of a good lawyer, like one of them is they will do literally everything in their power to help their client's chance of winning. Like if there's a motion they can file that even increases their chance of winning by 1%, they will do it.
And here, so you're talking about advocacy, right? And advocacy, people always think about arguments, which is part of advocacy. But a big part of arguments, the foundation of arguments, is evidence. And it's a critical part of being an advocate to marshal the best evidence you can. And lawyers do not frequently have the luxury of manufacturing evidence. Now, I guess that's partially what you're doing when you go get witnesses and bring them into court. You know, you're building a record, right? You're creating evidence. And on the LSAT, you have the opportunity to create evidence in your own favor. Like Dylan, would you remember what your first practice test was and how long you studied and all that?
So I didn't take a cold diagnostic because I didn't even know that was a thing when I started. Okay. So I had a little bit of knowledge, and my first test was about 160-ish. Yeah. And studied for about a year. I saw people above me that were going along the same path. What they would do is they would just take a class like their second semester junior year, not do as well as they hoped. And I thought, well, I'm going to give myself more time. I'm going to start the summer before junior year and just have that whole year to study. So then I can take it over the summer or retake in the fall or whatever it is. And I ended up taking about 30 practice tests, not counting like individual sections. I mean, sitting down and doing a full 5-section test, which is what it was at the time that I was studying.
Back in the day, yeah. That's amazing. I mean, so 160, not really a cold diagnostic. Your cold diagnostic probably would have been somewhere in the 150s. And you end up like with the right kind of prep, with the right kind of strategy, you end up improving from there by 20 points, basically, to all the way up to a 177. And what you've done is you have created this super powerful piece of evidence that cannot be argued with. Like nobody can say shit about that. The law schools are just going to be like, well, that's above our 75th percentile. Great. Or, you know, if it's like Yale, it's like, oh, well, that's our 75th percentile. Great. Perfect.
And I feel like I'm pretty self-aware. That 177 is why I'm going to Harvard. Like if I set a goal score at the very beginning, maybe I would have said 170, but I may have thought that was a reach at the time, but I didn't. My goal was to get the highest score within my capacity, whatever that may be. And I'm very fortunate that turned out to be a very high score. But if I applied with a 170, Harvard wouldn't have even looked at my application. I don't have an interesting story. I'm, middle-class white kid. They have enough Jews in law school, so I don't really add diversity. It's really that 177 that unlocked the key. I mean, my GPA was good. It was slightly below median, so technically a splitter. So really, I mean, can't thank you guys enough because the LSAT demon is why I scored this well. It really is your philosophy that resonated with me and helped me succeed.
You're welcome. You did all the work. I mean, you're the one who like busted your ass for a damn year to create this super powerful piece of evidence. But yeah, I mean, like people come to us with like, well, I have bad grades. Should I write an addendum to explain that? And also my LSAT isn't that good, so I could write about whatever. And it's like, well, that's one way to advocate for yourself, but a far better way to advocate for yourself is to demonstrate how smart / hardworking you are by doing, I mean, I just really believe that anybody can improve. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that, like, yeah, pretty much anybody can improve by 15 or 20 points on the LSAT. It might take a while, but it will change your life. Like, I agree, Dylan. With a 167 and mediocre grades, you're not going to Harvard. I mean, you'd be an exception, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be an exception. You want to go in through the front door.
Yeah. And I truly think I got in the easy way. I think the LSAT is the easy way. The hard way, the people who don't have like the LSAT score and GPA, who have these amazing life stories where they face like real adversity and like set up nonprofits and like actually change the world already. That seems hard to me. I'd rather just study for this test.
Well, everyone is trying for those few spots of like, well, we're making exceptions, right? I mean, if you look at the 509 data, the GPA and LSAT ranges are narrow. And so, yeah, they are making some exceptions. Like there are 25% of the class that are admitted with LSATs below their 25th percentile. 25% of the class has a GPA that's below their 25th percentile. That's what 25th percentile means. So this is like the 25% of the class that they're willing to make these exceptions for. But the lazy route is to say, well, that's one of those spots. That's for me, right? So you're calling that the hard way. But I do think it's the hard way because it's a vastly more competitive way. Like everybody thinks they're going to just take the shortcut. Everybody's like, oh no, just let me in the back door. It's like, yeah, okay, denied. Like, you know, Harvard denies 90% of the applications that they receive. And sure, they want you to apply. And, you know, sure, there are some people who get in via that route. But Dylan, you know, you took I agree with you. It's the widest door.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's the easiest, but you do have to bust your ass to, you know, get yourself through that door. Thanks for listening to the LSAT Demon Daily Digest. You can email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.